infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design, man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space. Yet across an immense ethereal gulf, minds that are to our minds, ours as the beasts in the jungle, intellects vast, cool, and unsympathetic, regarded this earth with envious eyes, slowly and surely drew their plans against it.
You are listening to WCJV Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, New York, the CJ Mars Radio Network. You are listening to WCJV Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, New York, the CJ Mars Radio Network.
Your radio has been taken over by forces of the unknown. You have been warned, so listen at your own risk. Be prepared as we discuss the paranormal. We will talk about things unseen, unknown, and unexplained. Here on Half Past Dead Paranormal Radios, with your host, Roger Belt. Keep listening if you dare.
We are live on WCJV Digital Broadcasting out of Youngstown, New York. This is Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio with your host, Roger Belt. We have an interesting show for you tonight. My guest is Chad Stambaugh, who is a paranormal researcher and author. And we're going to be talking about, among other things, his book that's called The Paranormal Directory. And I'm going to bring Mr. Stambaugh on and let him kind of give you the general rundown on what this is and how this is a helpful piece of equipment everybody should carry around with them. So, Mr. Stambaugh, would you please say hello to everybody?
Hello, how you all doing tonight?
This is It's an interesting book. Now, I haven't read it, so I can't quote unquote everything, but from the stuff that I have on it, uh, it's a well, of course, it's for anybody that studies paranormal.
Right.
Also, psychology, ufology, cryptozoology. I mean, it just covers a lot of stuff, and I'm going to let you kind of go over some of that with the people so they understand what's in here.
Yeah, it's called the Paranormal Dictionary, and it just goes over all the different 4 areas that we deal with in the paranormal. Like you said, parapsychology, ufology, cryptozoology, and also demonology. And it breaks down all the different words and definitions that we use in the paranormal field. And so one of the reasons I wrote it, gosh, it's been out for about 2 years now. One of the reasons I wrote it is because when I was going to different paracons, people were using different names for the same definition in different parts of the country, and actually even over in Europe. So I was just, it got me going thinking, well, there's got to be really a real word, or, somewhere somebody's got some kind of word that matches the same definition, so that we can all start, using the same words and definitions no matter where we're at. And so that's what I did. I took 18 months of research and dealt with the Rhine Research Center and Association of Paranormal Research Society in Europe and a bunch of other places. And I put all the words and definitions together so that, we can all be on the same wavelength when we're talking about something.
And that's awesome because, a lot of people will, especially new people coming into the paranormal field, they don't have a lot of, they don't have any expertise or hands-on. They don't have a lot of experience with the equipment that they have. They just think it looks neat, so they run out and buy it, Me, I'm an old-fashioned person. I tend to stick with a lot of the more old-fashioned equipment, but can you kind of, in your terms, what you think is the best way to learn a new piece of equipment? Like, say you go out and buy a REM pod. You've never had one. You don't know anything about it, but you want to take it out and use it on an investigation. Where would you begin? What would you do to study up on this thing?
Well, one of the good things that's happening now is a lot of the people that I work with, they're actually creating YouTube videos now on how to use the different pieces of equipment properly.
Right.
And so, that would be the very first place, I would go to. I would go on YouTube and I would type in how to use a REM pod. And I'm sure there would be a video pop up on there. Or if you can't, you don't want to do it that way, hopefully you can go on Facebook. And if you're into any of the paranormal groups, like I belong to about 150 paranormal Facebook groups.
I don't know how many of them I'm in, to be honest with you. There's a bunch of
Yeah, but usually somebody in there can teach you how to use the REM pod.
Well, I mean,
or any of the other pieces of equipment.
Yeah, I was just using that for an example. Like, there's so much new equipment coming out now. And there's one that's like, it's got a recorder, it's got a EMF detector, it's got, like, I don't know, like maybe a ghost box thing. It's all built together into one thing.
Are you talking about the Ghost Arc?
Yes, I believe that's the name of it. I hadn't looked a lot into it, but I mean, it seems like it does everything but wipe your tail. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm one of the. I'll be getting mine in December. I pre-ordered it. Plus, I had a lot of talking with the inventors of it. So we'll find out. I'm going to put it through its paces in December and January, and we'll see what it does and what it doesn't do, and if it holds up.
Right.
'Cause that's one of the biggest things out there is there's so much equipment out there, and most of the equipment that we use aren't really made for paranormal investigating.
They're used in that manner.
Right, and then two, when people are using it, most of the equipment, they're using it improperly.
So if you were going to use, what's the name of that one EM meter? It's it's the fancy one.
K2 or
Not
the millimeter?
the K2. It's a millimeter. It's one of the newer ones. It's got the antenna and it's got the lights across the top. The older ones didn't have that.
Yeah.
If you were going to use that, and I've seen it used as like a K2, where actually the spirit would light the lights up on the millimeter across the top. Have you ever done that, and do you recommend that? I mean,
I use it. My team has a K2 and a millimeter, and we use them both. And we use ours mainly for when we're going in and we do our basic sweep before we start an investigation. And we do that because we want to know what all the different electrical appliances and anything else electrical in the house is giving off.
Right.
So that way, when we do start our investigation, we see anything that differentiates from what we got on our basic sweep. It's not. I'm not going to say it's definitely paranormal, but it's something that we would have to look into more, with other types of equipment, because we've got a different variation of the EMF field in that area while we're investigating than what we had at the beginning.
I'm looking at another book here, Beyond the Veil, but I'm not going to jump into that just a second. But if you take that millimeter into a place that has no power, and the lights across the top just start, blinking back and forth and on and off, and especially if they're doing so to EVP questions you might be asking with a recorder, and you just happen to notice these lights are blinking all over the place. Would you start using it then like an EVP device, not EVP, but a communication device?
Oh, yeah, we use it like that as a communication device. Yeah, we'll set, and this is the thing, is a lot of people want to hold the millimeter or the K2. When you're doing something like this, you have to sit it down. And, you have to let it sit by itself and don't touch it so that you're getting accurate readings from
right,
that.
Exactly.
And, yeah, you can use it as a communication device. I mean, if you're sitting there doing an EVP session and you ask them to do, a yes or no question, you ask them to go to the yellow, and it goes to the yellow, and then if you say, okay, well, if it's a no question, just go to, all the way up to the red, and it does that on a no question, well, then you got some kind of validation going there because it's interacting with what you actually asked it to do.
Exactly. We had that happen with the K2 Halloween night, actually. I left it sitting, and it went from green all the way up to red and stayed there. And, we checked batteries and everything to make sure that it wasn't low batteries or anything like that. And, of course, when you first turn it back on after you're checking it, it's green. You set it down there, poof, it's up to red again. And it wouldn't come off of that. So we're assuming that there was a very high presence there. But anyway.
Now, even though sometimes you think there's no electricity there, you really have to look around your surroundings to see if there's any other type of EMF around your area that could be causing you to have EMF going off too. You just can't assume just because the building doesn't have any electricity that there's no EMF coming from maybe something nearby.
Exactly. We did that. We were way out in the sticks, and there was no other building around, nowhere.
Right.
Not within probably a mile anyway.
Right. And another thing with the K2, a lot of people hold the K2 improperly. They want to hold it in their hand so that it's almost like parallel, straight out from your palm. But a lot of people don't realize the K2, the sensors are on the very bottom of it, and you have to hold that thing straight up and down to get proper readings. If you hold it parallel, you're getting ill proper readings. So you have to hold that thing straight up and down. And a lot of people don't realize that, and they get false readings off of it.
Well, and also, there's the type that has the button you have to push and
Correct.
hold, and then there's the type with the switches on them. And if you have those ones with the button on it, the slightest twinge of your thumb or whatever can cause the reading to change.
Correct.
And a lot of people don't realize, that they even moved. And they'll be like, did you see that? It did this, and it really didn't. But, of course, ours is not the newest one on the block, but it does have the on-off switch. We don't have one with the hold button on it. But anyway, we did get a couple of decent EVPs in there. It was an old church that hadn't been used probably for, 50 years maybe. And there was stories from the locals around there that people did devil worship in there and all that. And of course, we didn't get anything. I didn't about that. I got one that told us to go home, but but it didn't say anything about worshiping the devil or anything like that.
Yeah, it probably wanted you to go home because you were invading his space. Since nobody had been there for 50 years, you were in his area.
Yeah, and we weren't really expecting, I guess, to find. Of course, now somebody said, and I didn't see them personally, but somebody said that there was pentagrams or whatever painted on signs out there and stuff like that. I didn't see it, so I can't say, I can't verify it, just what, the other ones were saying. And they didn't say that until after we were gone, so I couldn't look. But, when you go in places like that, a lot of people, and of course, one of the problems we had is we had people with us who were not members of the team, and there was a lot of contamination going on.
Oh, yes.
And that's another problem that you'll have. And especially if you're doing EVP, this, you cannot do a proper EVP session with 6 or 7 people talking like magpies.
No, because only one person's supposed to be speaking at a time.
Exactly. So I'm surprised we even got any of the EVPs that we did, but unfortunately we did get a couple, and one of them said, go home. And he's probably like, y'all need to shut up and get out of here, Excuse me. But, the K2, the millimeter, and in your digital recorders, of course, what do you recommend as far as the best digital recorder?
There's so many different ones out there. I don't recommend just one over another one. It just depends on, what kind of money you have to spend and, what you want to spend.
Right.
You can get any basic recorder out there. And, one of the things that we found is the more basic recorders, for some reason, get the better EVPs than the more expensive ones.
I'm glad you brought that up, because my next question I was going to ask you is, in a preference, to me, I have an analog recorder and I have the digital, and I love my analog recorder, and I feel like I get better EVP responses through the analog than I do on the digital.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about the analog. For some reason, they pick up better.
Well, now I have a philosophy on that, if you care to hear it.
Sure, good.
Whenever you're recording with an analog, the motor runs in the background. And when the motor runs in the background, it creates sort of a white noise effect. Whereas digital don't do that.
Correct.
So that's what I think makes it work better as far as, the responses you get on those compared to a digital. And I use mine on every investigation we go on. I always use my analog and my digital, but I always seem to get the better responses on the analog.
Yeah, one of the things that we do, we don't have an analog. We have digitals, but they're the cheaper kind. But what we did to compensate for what you get with the analog is we actually got a thing that creates white noise,
Right.
so we get the same effect. And I don't know what it is. I think something with the white noise. It helps the spirits. I don't know if it come through better, focus. I don't know how to explain it, but it's just weird how the white noise helps them.
Is it like some kind of energy that it's putting out that they can relate to, you think? Or, because I've noticed that, like I said, with the analog, it does create that, and you do get better responses. But also you can play, I have a white noise app on my phone. Well, not on this phone because I got a new one. But on my old phone, I had a white noise application that I would run with my recorder.
Right. So,
and you seem to get better, responses when you run that than you do, with just the recorder itself.
Definitely. Yeah, like you said, it must have something to do with energy or it helps them focus or whatever. But yeah, it definitely helps with the EVPs. Now, let me ask, when you guys do your EVPs, do you do just one long burst EVP, or do you do like short burst EVPs, like, maybe 3 to 5 minutes at a time?
Usually, I'll run, when I do one, it may run 5 minutes, and it usually probably is less in one spot. I feel like maybe that, if you can overdo it, they get tired of hearing you asking all these questions and just want you to shut the heck up,
Yeah, well, the reason I asked you that is because a lot of teams, that they either do one or the other. We like to do 2 different types. We'll do our short burst EVP sessions, 2 maybe to 4 minutes, and then we can listen back. But we always have at least one recorder that we record from the beginning of our investigation to the end. And for us anyway, we find that we get a whole bunch of EVPs that way because it seems like the spirits try to interact with our conversations when we're not actually investigating.
And see, that's what we did. I left my digital running the whole time we were there. And then we were running like, we had guys that were using their phone to do EVPs and stuff like that. And I didn't have the analog with me. That's the one time that I didn't have it with me because I always take it. And for some reason, I had it out, was doing something with it, and forgot to pack it, so it didn't go with me.
I used to do that too, and my teammates would get mad at me because I'm like, not only the co-founder of my team, but I'm also like the head tech manager.
Right, and that's what I do.
And my team would get mad at me for a long time because I forget something. So I actually had to make a checklist so that I can actually put it on a clipboard and I can go right down the list. Okay, do I have my did I change all the new batteries in the equipment? Do I have this piece of equipment? Is it staged? Do I have the recordings, the wirings for the DVR system and blah, blah, blah. And then it's like all the down the line. So that way I don't forget anything anymore.
I did. And, cause usually the first 2 things I'll take out when I get home is my digital recorder and my still camera. And I go through those. And so I'm lucky that I remembered to bring my dang still camera because it was out too. But I did see it, and I grabbed it and put it in my case, and then I didn't put my digital in there. And I'm like, man, I can't believe I didn't bring that. I mean, I always make sure I put that in there, and for some reason that last time I didn't, and I'm like, man, I can't believe I just left that at home. And then, of course, we got there, and my camera decided to go on the fritz. My video camera didn't want to work right.
Oh, yeah.
And
we have to replace our different pieces of equipment almost every other year because it just starts wearing out because you do so many investigations.
Yeah, that one, the last investigation, it was shutting off. And I'd get it to come back on. Of course, it would run. And we did a hospital in Fayetteville, Tennessee, and I ran that thing for an hour. And for some reason, not a bit of that video was there.
We just had that problem. Not the just past investigation we just did this weekend, but the one before that, we had the same problem. Every piece of video equipment that I had, nothing recorded. And I know I seen the record button on, and everything was recording, but yet nothing was there when
it was showing that it was recording and everything. And I run that thing probably a little over an hour, and nothing was there.
Yep. I'm like scratching my head. I'm like, why? Where in the heck did it go? I know it was recording. It's like sometimes I think it depends on what you're trying to go after. I think the spirit's like, oh no, I don't want to be seen today. And they just have some kind of power. They can just like, everything's wiped. You ain't going to see it.
And see, mine is a mini DVD, and the DVD was blank.
Well, all my recorders are on. I can put them on. They record to SD cards. Then I can download the SD card right onto my big computer that I have here at my home office.
And also, I had an experience at Waverly Hills with the digital recorder. My digital recorder. Me and another guy was sitting about midway down the death tunnel. And we were snapping pictures, and we were just talking and carrying on. And I had the recorder running the whole time. And I heard footsteps coming up from the bottom. And you could hear it plain as day, heel to toe, coming up from the bottom. And it was pitch black. You couldn't see anything. We didn't have a flashlight. All we had was like, whenever you flashed the camera, you could see maybe 10 feet in front of you.
Right.
But anyway, you could hear, just plain footsteps coming up the thing. And my recorder did not pick that up.
It's crazy. I don't know how it happens, but it happens.
And that, I got other EVPs in there and everything, and it picked everything up good, but it did not pick up that. I had an EVP in the morgue that told me, I said, I got up in the freezer and I asked if there was anybody in there with me, and I had a voice that said, I'm with you. But, in the death tunnel, it didn't pick that up, and that made me so mad because that would have been the best.
It would have been a good evening. But I've heard of other people been in that tunnel and had the same kind of problems. So it's just not you. I think it's something in there that just doesn't want to be heard or seen.
Well, when I think about all the death that went through there, or all the, I'm sure they didn't die in there, but you know what I'm saying? All the dead people that were carried through there.
Right.
There has to be a lingering, energy there. There has to be. And it, like I said, it didn't pick up that, but it picked up everything else. When I do EVP, sessions, it would pick up stuff. In the freezer in the morgue, it picked that up. On the 5th floor, it picked up another one. We didn't really see anything as far as visual. But, you could just feel the heaviness in that place. That place is awesome. I'd love to go back up there.
I've never been there, but I've talked to a lot of people that have been there. And like I said, they've had some weird experiences. And a lot of people have had the same problem with, like you, not getting any video in there.
My video wouldn't work in there. It was too dark. I didn't have enough...
You didn't have enough IR lights?
Yeah, to make it real plain. It didn't start showing up until it started breaking morning. And then you could get a halfway decent picture. But I did get one of a moan in one of those rooms on a recorder that sounded like something straight out of a cartoon. Have you heard those cartoons where they go, oh, well, that's what it sounded like. And I'm like, what? I played it back again. Oh, I'm like, That is too cool. And the one that I got on the 5th floor was next to where the nurse supposedly hung herself. I know you've heard the story. And I was asking if she was there. And the reply I got was, help me walk.
Interesting.
And, of course, you know what they did with the people there, right, trying to relieve the tuberculosis. In some cases, they would remove ribs and all that stuff, which would make your stature non-stable.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm sure they had a hard time walking, some of them. So I thought, well, yeah, it makes sense, you know. But when we did the hospital in Fayetteville, I only got one EVP out of that whole place. It's 3 stories in a basement. And I was in the surgical area. They had like 3 or 4 surgical rooms down there. And I went through this door, and it was into like this little kitchenette-like thing.
Right.
Had, you know, your cabinets and all that stuff, and probably where they would have had maybe a coffee pot, something like that, you know. And I got an EVP that sounded like a little boy moaning. And that was the only thing. We were there probably almost 7 hours. And that's the only thing that we got.
Huh.
I mean, I took pictures galore. I run. That's where I run the hour-long video that didn't show up. And out of all that, got one little EVP out of it. And I don't know if they just didn't want to be seen and heard, because I know that they don't play on cue, and one night you may get nothing, the next night you may get a whole bunch of stuff.
And that's why a lot of people need to go back. And that's another thing that paranormal investigators make a mistake.
Right.
They don't go back to places more than once and to validate their evidence that they're getting from that, that place.
Exactly. Sometimes it takes more than 2 trips. Sometimes you may have to go back 3 or 4 times, 5 times, you know.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, with us, we do a lot of private investigations. So, it takes us to going back, 5, 6, even sometimes 10 or more times, to get the good evidence to validate it.
Exactly. And sometimes it can be the time that you go. Just because most of your quote-unquote ghost hunters do this stuff at night doesn't mean that they don't show up in the daytime.
Oh, yeah. People, I think, they got to do investigations during night from the shows, because that's all they ever show is, investigations at night. So
it looks more dramatic for TV,
Exactly. So, people get that misconception that ghosts are only out at night, when it's incorrect.
And, of course, if anybody has got, where possible, and I know sometimes it's not, but, if you have any good sense about you, you will go in daytime and you will walk through this place before you ever go at night.
Oh, yeah. That was one of the things I was going to bring up. I'm huge into paranormal safety. It's one of the things I've been lecturing on the last year and a half or so is paranormal safety. And, if people do not go in during the daytime where they're going to investigate to see where all the dangerous parts are and mark them off before they go, to investigate that night, so a lot of people are getting hurt because they don't do that.
Exactly. Let me hold you just a second here. We're live on WCJV Digital Broadcasting out of Youngstown, New York. This is Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio with your host, Roger Belt, and my very interesting guest, Mr. Chad Stambaugh. And we're just having some good old paranormal discussion. Anybody wants to call in, add in a question, whatever, for Chad, call in now if you want. I hadn't been watching this chat room and everything because I've been too busy to listen to you, but so I don't.
Well, I
I
see one of my good friends, William Wallace, in the chat room.
William is a character. I love William.
I love William.
William's my bud. But anyway, now that we've got that out of the way here, uh, the thing about safety is, and I know that you've been up on the stuff where it was here a few years ago. Uh, these people went in under the pretense of being ghost hunters, burnt this mansion down. It was a very historic place. Burn it to the ground.
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of people out there that have done things like that, and it's just, it's bad.
It makes you, to me, it made me angry. Because when you go into a place, me anyways, I'm thinking of my safety, my team safety, but also the building safety. And, I don't want anything going on a location that can be harmful to us or the property.
Exactly.
And of course, another thing that I like to do, I'm one of these people that I don't just go into a haunted location to look for ghosts. I go into these places to look for the history. I look at the woodwork. I look at, things people left behind. Everything is history.
Exactly.
And even if you don't get an EVP and you go into one of these old colonial houses or something, and you don't get nothing, but you get to see some, and a lot of times people will leave all kinds of stuff behind. Antique dressers, vanities, beds, the woodwork is immaculate, just the way they used to carve the crown moldings and all that. And everything like that is interesting to me.
Definitely. I mean, especially that old stuff. I mean, it's just, it reminds you, how people used to live back then.
Exactly.
And how, I don't know, how spoiled, I guess you could say, we are today.
Right. Exactly. I remember one old house we went in that actually still had a hand pump in the kitchen sink.
Wow.
And I'm like, this is so cool. I mean, I never expected that. And of course, I had to take pictures of it. It was one of the old hand pumps that you had to prime, and you put, that's how they got the water in their kitchen sink. And I'm like,
do they still work?
I tried it. I couldn't get it to pump up, but I'm sure if you messed with it long enough, it probably would have.
Yeah, I've run into a couple of them and that they didn't work.
Yeah, I don't know how the guts are made in them. If that rusts out or something and it don't pull no pressure anymore or something, I don't know. But I just thought it was so interesting because I've been in a lot of old houses, and that's the first time I ever ran across one of those in a kitchen. I've seen them outside, but not in the kitchen.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's we're talking a lot about safety and stuff here because that's one of the things that I feel like too many people don't put enough emphasis on.
Definitely.
When they go out,
Yep,
especially the newer people.
Yeah, there's no training. That's one of the things that bothers me. It's why I haven't been to a paranormal convention in probably about a year now. Although I'm getting ready to go to my first one this weekend because I'm doing a book signing for my newest book. And the guy that's holding the Paracon is one of my better friends out here in the California area. But that's the biggest thing that I hate about Paracon is there's no education taught there. It's all about the big time celebrities and look what I did, stuff like that. And there's no education there because people are coming there, they're interested in the paranormal. But
they're coming there to see the para-celebrity.
Yeah, they're not getting any education, and when I do my lectures, it's about education. I do a little bit, about, me and stuff like that, and I'll do after or in between the lectures, signing my books or ask questions and stuff. But when I do my lectures, it's educational because I want these people to know what's out there, what can happen to them, the dangers of paranormal investigating, and how to do it properly so that they're not one of the people later on that I'm reading about on the internet or in the
Yeah.
newspaper because they screwed up and did something.
You know, when somebody got killed or somebody got hurt really bad, or you know, that's what I was talking about, doing a daytime walkthrough, especially in old houses.
Oh yeah,
You know, because you don't never know, uh, you know, when a ceiling can fall through with you, or you know, if you're upstairs and a ceiling can fall through.
or you
Uh,
could fall through a floor because you didn't realize that
yeah,
the wooded floor was rotted out.
exactly. And I've read stuff where investigators have had team members get some, you know, um, what's the word I'm looking for here? Crippled for life. Or if they survive, some of them don't.
Right. Well, like William just said in the chat room, identifying open electrical outlets.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I can give you a perfect example of that. Through some of my research, this was probably 2 years ago now, but it's very important. They were in an older house, late 1800s, early 1900s, you know, somewhere in there, and there was supposed to be nobody was living in it at the time. It was between renters, but the electricity was supposed to be off in the house, so they thought. And a lot of those older houses, when you go down into the basement and you're walking, usually about halfway down on the right-hand side, there's usually a metal box there, and it's an electrical conjunction box that electricians used back then to bring the electricity down into the basement. And they never checked to see, you know, to make double check that, you know, there was no electricity in there. And what happened is one of the co-founders was walking down into the basement, and he touched that metal plate and didn't realize that the wiring that was in there, all the plastic protection coating was gone, and live wires were hitting that plate, and electricity was on in the house. And when he touched that, it electrocuted him. Now, he didn't die, but he got big time electrocuted. But if they would have went through there and had their, what is it? It's a tester.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
If they would have used that detector, because I have one too, for, you know, checking outlets to see if there's any voltage coming out. Yeah, it's a voltage meter.
A voltmeter, yeah, I've got one too.
If they would have tested that voltmeter on that metal thing, they would have seen that there was a lot of electricity coming through there, and they could have like told everybody, don't touch that box, or got the electricity actually turned off. But because they didn't go and do their safety protocol before, that's what happens.
We did a investigation for a lady in Dyersburg, Tennessee, here not long ago, that was having all these hallucination type things going on and all that. And of course, it was EMF. I think the 90% of it was EMF. She had a house, of course, it was old and had the old cloth wiring in it. And that's what a lot of people don't watch out for. You know, when we hold a meter up there, and boy, it just went off the chart on the wall. You know, you start at a light switch and work your way across the wall, and that thing would just zoom up, you know, outrageous.
Right.
And these were the spots where she claimed, you know, that she was seeing this stuff at. So we pretty much, you know, nailed 90% of it to, you know, high EMFs and the effects it was doing with her.
Right.
But the point about that house is the type of wiring that's in there. Those things, sometimes they're bare. That cloth stuff will come off of them, and you'll have bare wires. And you won't, if you're not using a flashlight at the time, and a lot of times people won't because they want that effect, you know. So they're messing around in places where there's these bare old wires at. They're not using any light. Next thing you know, they put their hand on one, or their knee, or whatever, if they're crawling around in an attic space or what have you. You know, it's just really dangerous. And another reason, as I say, daytime, you know, checks are always best because you can kind of get an idea where the stuff might be. You know, then when you go in, if you're crawling around at night up there, you know, well, if I go over to the left over here, you know, there's some bare wires over there.
Right.
or there's a junction box that ain't covered over here, or anything like that.
Yep, definitely. Now, I had another question that I seen in the chat room, and it's not about safety, but William had a question earlier about he has a strong. He wanted to know about entities that have strong violent tendencies, and the word demon being used so much out there. I really want to respond to that question because it's a very good question.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you something in that sort of line anyway.
The word demon is so overused. A lot of times, and if you're going in to do personal or private residences, stuff like that, and you walk in and they're telling you that they think they have a demon because they're being scratched or things are being moved or thrown around or whatever. The reason that's happening is, and I'll give you an example. This is what I use when I go to my lectures. Imagine you and me, and I'll use William since it's this question. You, me, and William sitting there, and we're all together. And I'm talking to you back and forth. We're interacting, and William's trying to get my attention because he wants to ask me a question, and I'm totally ignoring him. Well, eventually, William's going to do one of two things. He's either going to get up and say the H with this because nothing's happening, I'm not getting his attention, or he's going to be like a spirit again and get mad. And he's going to start doing things to get my attention. Step in between us, put their hand on my shoulder, or something like that. With a spirit, they're going to be a little bit more aggressive. They're going to move things around. They're going to scratch you because they're trying to get your attention. And what I find out is when we come in and we actually acknowledge that spirit, it's like a big sense of relief has been taken off. And it's like, oh my gosh, somebody's finally recognizing me,
Exactly.
And all that weird violent stuff goes away because now the spirit or entity, whatever you want to call it, has been acknowledged. And now they realize that somebody's here talking to them, and they relax and they can start communicating because that's what they wanted to begin with.
Well, they wanted to get their message across, or
exactly.
They wanted somebody to notice that they're here. Say, I'm here. Pay attention to me.
Exactly. But so many people out there that don't realize this, and even newer, or even sometimes I've seen it also, so older paranormal investigators, they think that, oh my God, they got scratched, or this happened, or they got a growl and an EVP. Oh my God, we're dealing with demons.
Right.
And I've heard lately, I don't know, a team out in the Midwest somewhere. I haven't got their name yet because when I get their name, I'm not going to leave it there. But they've been going into places and been getting weird noises like growls or something like that, and they just pack up their equipment and tell the clients that they got a demon because they got a growl or EVP, and they just leave the client hanging.
Right.
And that is so unprofessional, unethical, that it just drives me crazy.
Well, you don't leave a client high and dry. I don't care whether you think it's a demon or not.
Exactly.
As you said, that's very unprofessional, number one. Number two, they're going to think, well, what the heck did I call these people for? If I call somebody else, are they going to be the same way?
You would.
And another thing I can't stand, and you brought it up, the question I was going to ask you, with like a team going in and saying you got a demon, blah, 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 and then they leave. Another thing that I cannot stand is whenever you have a team go in somebody's house and tell them you got 4 or 5 demons running around in here.
Yeah.
You
never tell your client right off the bat what they have until after you left and go actually listen to your evidence, and then you go back and do a review. And then even then, you don't tell your client that they got a demon. That's like totally unprofessional and unethical.
If you, I like to go in and have them tell me what they're experiencing.
Oh, yeah.
And then I base what I'm going to do off of that. to begin. And what I find, if I think it's, if I thought, and I have to bring this up because this was brought up recently in another show. We were discussing some stuff similar. It depends on what religion, if any, a person belongs to and believes in, whether or not they're going to accept demon or something else as whatever it is. But I'm not going to tell them, even if I thought they had a demon, I'm not going to tell them, hey, you got a demon in here. Number one, I feel like part of my job is to calm them down. They're already worked up and scared as it is. You don't want to tell them something that's going to send them through the roof.
Exactly, because now you're just scaring that homeowner more.
Exactly.
And, if that homeowner does something because you've scared them so much that they do something that to harm themselves or they get injured or something like that, a lot of people don't realize that homeowner can turn around and sue you. And
a lot of times they may leave their home because they're scared, and they really can't afford to do that. So you're putting these people out in the street because you're telling them that, there's some horrible thing in here that's going to eat them alive. Exactly. I don't think that's the way to do it.
It's not. It's, like I said, it's very unprofessional and very ethical. And it pisses me off because it gives a bad rap to the rest of the people out there that's doing this for the right reasons and doing it professionally. I mean, there is no such thing as an expert, but I will say that myself and my team are very professional.
We are professional people. We do things in a professional manner, but as far as knowing everything, I don't think there's anybody out there that knows everything about the paranormal field, and I don't think there ever will be.
It's impossible because ideas and philosophies change almost every year. Something new's coming out or something's been disproven that, okay, you can't do it that way. So, yeah, I agree with you that you can't do that because nothing is concrete.
Well, now let me ask you a question here, your opinion on a philosophy that I have. I think that spirits are just like, of course, spirits are basically people without a body. Okay, now, once, and I don't know, I haven't been there yet. Hopefully I won't go for a while. But once they cross that threshold from life to afterlife, in your opinion, do you think that, they're like smart as like people here on Earth when they learn stuff? Are they constantly still learning once they cross that thing and they learn your tricks and they know how to avoid you? Or, maybe they might decide to play games with you because they know what you're doing. Am I making any sense here?
Oh, yeah, you're making sense. My personal opinion on that, and again, it's my personal opinion, I feel that once you pass beyond the veil, like I like to call it, you lose all those physical or human limitations.
Exactly.
I think that I'm not going to say that the human spirit will have automatic know-it-all, but they have more knowledge than we will ever have.
Exactly. Well, and they're in a place where they can know these things. I mean, think of how many spirits have passed. When you cross over, and that's another thing. Like I said, I don't know. I haven't been there. But when you cross that line, I don't think that you're just over there by yourself. You're probably over there with numerous.
Yes, you're over there with everybody that you've ever known.
And these people have knowledge that go way beyond what we would even consider, in our brightest day.
Exactly.
I really do think so.
And I think the human spirit or the soul, once it's on the other side, actually knows even more people than they did when they were alive in this lifetime. Because I do believe in reincarnation, and I believe
Well,
that
I believe
there's
in past lives, so that means that you had to be reincarnated.
exactly. I actually believe that you don't go, and this is again my opinion. I don't believe that you go directly to heaven. Now, hell, I'm not sure. You could go directly to hell. I'm not sure. But heaven, I don't believe that the human spirit goes directly to heaven. I believe there's different levels that the human spirit has to go through, learning wise.
Yeah, it's just like what you learn while you're here.
Right.
And then you go to the next level and you learn what you have to learn while you're there, and then you progress to the next level and so on.
Right. You keep coming back and you fix your mistakes, or you learn something else that you needed to learn.
Exactly, that you didn't have time to do while you were here.
Exactly. There's actually a movie that I was watching the other day, and I have to see if I can pull it up. And it was a very good movie. It was off of Hulu, and it was based on this man. He was a doctor, and he lived, and it looked like it was like maybe the mid to late 20s, maybe even early 30s. And he died and didn't go directly to heaven. He went to, I guess you could call it purgatory. Even though he had not done anything, he didn't commit suicide. He died of some kind of complication. I think he had pancreatic cancer or something. And he died, but he, like I said, didn't go to heaven. He died and went to purgatory, but they were calling him suicidal in this movie. The reason they were calling him suicidal is because of the things that he did to his body while he was alive. And so he had to forgive himself and ask for God's blessing and forgiveness before he was actually taking up to the next level. And the level he was on, it was like, it was really weird because he knew all the different people there, but he had to learn new things. And they showed the scientific thing. They had like a floating bus or kind of like a floating train, and there was a whole bunch of different stuff. And his guide that was there with him was saying these are the different things that man will eventually achieve throughout the ages, technology-wise. And different people that are there are learning these technologies, and when they're brought back to Earth again, they bring that knowledge back with them. And I thought it was a very interesting movie, and it had a very interesting play on how things are in the afterlife.
Right. Excuse me. If you, and this is, and then I'll tell you my idea, but if you've investigated a place where you believe that there is a demonic presence there?
Yes. I have dealt with several cases that have done with the demonic. I'm actually, and I'm not going to say I'm a demonologist, but I'm a person that is studying demonology to become a demonologist, because
Right.
it takes years to become it. So I'm
My
not going to claim that I'm a
question
demonologist, but yes.
My question was, if you were investigating a residence for somebody, and as we were speaking about earlier, you decided that you felt like there really is a demonic presence here, what would be your next move? What would you do?
Well, if somebody told me, I mean, even if they tell me that they have something demonic there, I would go through different things. to see if there actually is a demonic presence there. And I won't say it on the air because a lot of times people will use that information incorrectly. But there's different things that I can do to find if there's actually demonic entity there. There's different tests and stuff that we have to do. If you ever watched the movie Conjuring, you've seen some of those on there. What they actually have to do. There's actually more stuff than what they actually show there, but so I would go through that to even before I'd even determine whether there's demonic activity. If there was demonic activity, I'd get the clergy involved. What they I hate to bring it up, but what they just did on that show the other week. Having that stuff on the air, thinking they're trying to do demonic exorcism. That was totally unprofessional and unethical. That should never have happened. That should have never been on TV.
I'll agree. I think what my point I'm trying to get at about that is, as I said before, I wouldn't tell the people, hey, you got a demon in here. And of course, my next thing would be,
okay, you talking about if I had a client? If I had a client, I wouldn't tell them that they had a demon.
Exactly.
What I would tell them is that, yes, you got some activity going here, and we need to, do a little bit more investigating to see what's going on. And then I would do another investigation and see if we get the same type of problem. And if we do, and if we can come up that if it is demonic, then again, I still don't tell the client, I just tell them, or actually my wife usually, she's the counselor and she talks to the clients about this. We just tell them that we want to come in and cleanse and do a blessing on their home. And, that we deal with different clergy. And this is another thing. There's people out there that claiming they're doing these blessings and cleansings, and they don't know what the blank they're doing, and they're not even using any type of clergy to come in and help them.
That's exactly where I was going.
You got to bring in different clergy, and again, you got also, not to interrupt you or anything, but you got to deal with that client's religion. You can't come in with a Christian-based ideology.
If they are Native American, you bring in a shaman. If they are Christian, you bring in or if they are Catholic, you bring in a priest or whatever.
Exactly.
And that was my point. That's where I was going. You would kind of let them know in a roundabout way without scaring the crap out of them.
Exactly.
That, we need to do a little further investigation. I'd like to bring someone in with me, to help me figure out what's going on here or whatever like that. You wouldn't just say, hey, I'm going to bring in a priest. You got a demon running around here.
No, I would just say that we got something in here a little bit stronger than,
Yeah.
It's not a demon, but it's a good, strong entity. And so, we already know that you don't want the entity here. You want it gone. So we're going to go ahead, and do what we can for you. And we have different rituals and stuff like that. And we're actually going to bring a clergy that's, in your faith, come in and help us do a cleansing and blessing of your home.
Exactly. Thank you. That's what I was trying to get at.
I never, ever, ever, ever tell a client they got a demon. That word never comes out of my mouth.
That is exactly what I was trying to get out. You brought that point out perfect. Thank you very much. That's what I wanted. Because I want everybody to understand that by telling these people things, you may, in your mind, you may think, you're doing the right thing. You're helping these people. You're telling them they got a demon running around in here and we need to get a priest in here. No, that's not what you need to tell them.
No, because like I said earlier, a couple of minutes ago, if you go in there and do that and that client does something to harm themselves, and not just leave, but if they do something to harm themselves or they get hurt because they're so scared and because even if they fall down and break the leg, they can sue you because you caused that fear in them.
Well,
not only people don't know that.
Not only the fact of them suing you, but you don't want them to get hurt over something you told them. I mean, you got to live with that, even if they didn't sue you. If you got a conscience like me, you ain't going to want to live with that.
No, exactly.
Okay, we're going to have to take a hard break. Sorry to interrupt you there. About 5 minutes, you guys. Fill your coffee cups, tea mugs, whatever you're drinking. Do your potty breaks and all that other good stuff. This has been very interesting, and we will get back into it here in about 5 minutes.
You are listening to WCJV Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, New York, the CJ Mars Radio Network.
Okay, everybody, we are back, and we were chatting a little bit there beyond the eyes and ears of everybody listening about television shows, and I'm not going to name any names and, all that, but when you're dealing with networks, and this is what I was just saying, they own you. You got a lot of teams out there that get into the paranormal because they want to become the next Taps or the next Ghost Adventures or what have you. You get involved with the network, they own you. And you will do what they say. I don't care how much you sit there and say that, well, I won't do that. I just want to do. Yes, you will, because they own you. If you want that money and that fame, you're going to do what they tell you.
Yeah, everybody that does these shows, they have to sign a non-disclosure and saying they cannot talk about it, and you will do what, exactly, this is what is going to be said.
This is the script, and you're going to follow it.
Exactly.
Or else, and Chad and I both seem to have the same outlook on a lot of things, but, when it comes to that, they do not care. The network does not care if they set you up with an investigation and it's a residential client and they got kids or whatever. They do not care for the welfare of those people.
Nope.
And the sad thing about it is, and what a lot of these teams and people don't realize, is the network will have you do something, and then when someone gets injured, like a client or their family members, who do you think's going to get sued? It ain't going to be the network. It's going to be you, buddy.
Yep. That's what I was just saying, when we were off the air. I really feel there should be some legal way that all these shows should have to be on there and put a disclaimer saying for entertainment purposes only.
Exactly. And but see, when I read that thing I was telling you about, let me refresh my memory a little bit here. This was earlier today. I was reading about that. Dang it, what did that woman say? Something basically along the lines of what I was just saying, but anyway, it's like, they're done with you when they get what they want. They don't care about your welfare. They don't care about if they leave you in a worse mess than you were in when they got there.
Yep.
As long as they get that good footage that they can put up on TV for everybody to watch and go, ooh, that's what they care about. And I've harped on this so many times on Facebook, and some of the people here in chat that's on my Facebook can tell you so.
Yep.
They probably
because if they don't get their ratings, then they won't have their show. So
exactly. It doesn't matter. And the thing about it is, and if you decided to say, well, look, I've had enough. I'm not going to lie anymore. I'm not going to fake anymore. I'm not going to do something that puts people in danger anymore. I'm just not going to do it. You know what they're going to do? They're going to shut you down, and they're going to start another one.
And they do.
Exactly. I mean, I can't count how many of them over the last 2 years, that have fired up from nowhere. What about the Haunted Mine one?
Now, actually, believe it or not, I actually like that one. Only for the reason a lot of they actually showed them doing research, and you learned about how the mining was done. So,
Yeah, that research. You reminded me. That was one of the things that this person had wrote in this letter, was talking about how this team, and I won't mention names, like I said, but a couple of members of this team supposedly went to the town hall to look up information about this house and what have you, and found all this interesting stuff. But to find out the truth, they already knew it anyway. They already knew who owned the house. They already knew all about the supposed haunting in the house. They knew everything. Because these people were asked to send information to the the director, about all the haunted areas in the house, or the claims of where the activity claims were in and around the house, photographs that they had any with explanations of what they were and where they were taken and blah, blah, blah. So they knew everything up front, including the so-called psychic that they brought in. This person knew everything. So naturally, he picked up on stuff right in these spots where they had sent information in that stuff happened. Now, having said that, am I saying that all psychics are full of bull? No. I'm saying this one knew everything before they got there.
Yeah, because they did the research first, and so they knew.
The homeowners sent in the information to the director, who sent it to him and to the paranormal team that came. So everybody already knew everything. So naturally, when he came in, supposedly he didn't know a thing about the place, and blah, blah, blah. And he goes in, and exactly where they had sent this information in is where he picked up, and who he picked up, because they had sent in the name of the person. So he automatically picks up, stuff's going on right here, and I get this letter, blah, blah, But he already knew.
Yep.
That's my point. These shows, man, people just, if you do watch them, please watch them for entertainment only, because that's all they are. And like Chad said, they should have to put up a disclaimer. This is for entertainment purposes only.
Yep, they should.
It's so much bogus crap,
Big time bogus.
I love talking with people that know where I'm coming from. But it's interesting about, I remember there was one episode of a show, and I can't pinpoint the show off the top of my head right now, which group it was, but it was one of the TV paranormal shows that I was watching, where, you could tell that it wasn't real. You could tell, even if you paid attention, you could even tell where some splicing was done.
Yeah, you can see.
You would notice the little flicker when it changed from a scene.
Yeah. Or you can tell that people are reading a script. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not natural. People are reading a script. Their conversations are not natural.
No, they tend to pinpoint letters and emphasis on words.
Correct.
And you can tell that they're reading it off of something. And you can tell where the real part they're talking is and where the part where they're reading off of a cue card.
Yep.
And anybody that pays close attention, and my buddy Frank Lee here, he's in the chat room, he knows what I'm talking about. I was watching a show, and this is a new show that came out. Like I said, I'm not going to mention show names here or nothing, but you could tell this guy was reading from a cue card, because he's talking about, we just came into this town and they have and he pronounced the A, and he pronounced you could tell that he was reading this. And then once he got past the little introduction of them coming into, you could tell when he was actually talking, real, more normal. But then in the investigation parts, you could tell parts where, that he was emphasizing something that he was reading, when he would say certain things, like about what's going on in this area, or what you need to do. And another thing that I didn't like about this show in particular, and it's like I said, it's a new one. Um, you come into a person's house, you bring 30 freaking people with you, cameras everywhere, and you tell these people, I need you to be quiet. And in a tone of voice like you're talking down to them. You don't do that.
Yeah, well, 30 people for an investigation, that's too much people right off the bat.
Right. Well, you got all your TV camera crew, right? And then you got the 6 or 7 quote unquote investigators here. So,
You're going to
you
get contamination with all those people.
Exactly. You got all this going on, and you're going to tell the residents to be quiet? Really? That was a set-up cue card deal if I ever saw one.
Yeah. I'm laughing because William in the chat room keeps saying Zach Meggins. I don't care. I say his name.
Well, I said I wasn't going to mention names here, but Zach Bagans is a moron. I'm sorry.
The only reason he got the show is because his looks, and the women like to keep him. I mean, have you ever checked doing any investigation that show? 70% of that show are female watchers.
Right. Frank said groupies, and that's true.
Yep.
But, that demon stole Zach's hair gel, so we won't even talk about Zach, but I feel sorry for him. Some demon took his hair gel. But that's the point. The point is you can tell with these shows and stuff, you can tell they're not real. You can tell where stuff's been spliced. You can tell where they're not talking normal. They're talking from a cue card. And the person that I told you about that wrote this letter that I was reading from, that I was explaining all of this stuff from, was actually in one of the bedrooms of the house where they supposedly found a cold spot in the bed, and supposedly only the investigator and the psychic saw the impression of this person in the bed. But they had this cold spot there, which was later determined to be an ice cold can of Budweiser. Woohoo! You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Anything to spice up things. And of course, it was covered up. You couldn't see it, but you could read it with a meter. So, yeah, naturally, you're going to get a cold spot.
Yep. And see, and the thing with those is there's just too much single evidence, and they're trying to use that as, a basis for their whole investigation. One piece of evidence is not enough to validate that actually something is going in there. You got to have more than just one. I go by the 3-piece rule. You got to have 3 different pieces of evidence correlating at the very same time things are going on to corroborate each other. That, you definitely might have something.
The perfect deal would be to have, and how often do you get this though? An EVP with a corresponding spirit manifestation, something to verify that the EVP actually came from a spirit that you actually seen.
Right. Well, you don't get a lot of it, but a lot of times, when I give you an example, we do use mediums on our team. My wife is she's what we call a sensitive. Then we have another medium on our show that actually can see the spirits. But when we first started out, we created our own team. We've been doing this for 10 years, but in 2010, we created our own group, 11th Hour Paranormal. And one of our earlier cases, when we had one of our mediums that's no longer with us because she's moved out of the area. To give you an example of what I call a three-piece evidence that correlates with each other, we were at an investigation, and she felt something tugging at her hair off to her left shoulder. So I have my team trained that when one of our mediums says something like that, we automatically start taking pictures all around this person. We'll do video. We'll get a video camera on that person, and we start doing short EVP sessions right off the bat. Well, when we did this, not only within a minute of each other, all of this, within a minute, all three of these things are happening. So the first thing we got is she was touched or her hair was pulled. We got a picture, and this is going to be very controversial because a lot of people don't believe it, but I believe in orbs. We got a very bright green orb off her left shoulder where her hair was being tugged. And we got an EVP, Class A EVP, of the name of the person who was standing there. So we've got three different pieces of evidence all happening at the same time within a minute of each other.
Right.
To me, that validates, okay, yes, we just had a paranormal experience here. We actually got something.
William keeps saying Zach Baggins.
I know.
William, I think your phonograph's stuck there, buddy.
So, that's what I call our three-piece evidence. When I get something like that, then I can sit back and say, yes, I have something that's possibly, I'm not going to come straight out and say it's paranormal because I want to do some more research. But I'm going to say, yes, you definitely got some kind of paranormal activity going on here. But we need to do more research before I can validate it totally. But when you have three pieces of evidence like that, it's hard for somebody else to come in and say, oh, no, that's just something else. Or, yeah, that's an orb. But, you got to throw that out because nobody believes in orbs. Well, you can't do that.
Well, I have to tell you, I don't believe in orbs, but to each their own. But I was going to say, it reminds me of we were talking about the TV shows. Back in the day, Taps used to actually, in my mind, be a halfway decent show to watch when they first started out. They actually seemed like they cared about the people. And they also debunked a lot more stuff. Now they don't hardly debunk stuff. It's like, yeah, we got this and we got that. And of course, they were not. Why can I never remember his dadgum name? The ball guy, the head of them.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Okay, he would throw out anything that had an orb in it. You had all the rest of them going, we got this orb. No, throw it out. And that's kind of the way I look at it, except for
I understand that.
I'm not, and I tell everybody, I'm not saying there's no such thing. I'm saying I want proof more than just a little ball of light.
But that's what I'm saying. If you got a ball of light over the shoulder where that woman got touched on a photo, and I've got an EVP, when we asked, what is your name? And we got a Class A EVP at the same time, the person saying who they were, and the client knew who this person was. It's hard to say that orb wasn't real. Because it was there at the same point in time. It was right there where she got touched on the left side of her shoulder at her hair. And you got the EVP, you got the medium saying it. That's too much validation going with it to saying that that it's incidental. It's impossible to be incidental because you got the other two going with it.
Deborah Jane East in the chat room saying orbs are real. That's fine. Y'all want to believe in orbs? I don't care.
Now, I'm not saying that everything out there is an orb, because I do my lectures, I teach on orbs also. An orb like I'm talking about, that green orb, is like maybe 1.1% of a whole percent. 90% of your 99% are your dust orbs, water, whatever you want to call it. There are a lot of them out there, but you do have those rare occasions where you do have colored orbs.
Okay, my philosophy is, and you don't know this, but most everybody else that knows me knows this. Whenever an orb floats up to me and says, hey, Raj, I'm an orb entity, or it turns into a full-blown apparition, I will claim it. Otherwise, it's dust, bugs, moisture, etc., etc., etc.
But that's exactly what my scenario, well, my real scenario that I just gave you. What you just said, exactly what did happen. That orb was there and got an Class A EVP saying the person's name at the exact same time. So
Well,
pretty much,
see, I've never had nothing.
You weren't
like
there,
that.
so you weren't there.
Exactly.
So.
I've never had nothing like that, so I can't say, yeah, I know what you mean.
Right.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying
I'm not saying right. I'm just saying that that people need to, and again, it goes back to that validation. You got to have more than one piece of evidence to validate. If you just if I would have just got that orb by itself, yeah, I would have been like Jay on Ghost Hunters and threw it out.
Yeah,
because it's all by itself. Because it's by itself. But when I have two other pieces of information going simultaneously with that picture of that colored orb, for me, I've been doing this too long that it's just it can't be a coincidence.
Well, and like I said, if I had a case like what you're talking about where I could verify it with three other means of, evidence, then I would be a little bit more inclined to believe.
Right.
But I haven't had that happen yet. And if I do,
hopefully somewhere down the line it'll happen.
Say, yeah, that's an orb. I mean, I'm not against it. Like I said, I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm just saying I need a little bit more personally for me.
Oh, I totally agree.
And that's just like, though, if I told you I saw a ghost, and if you know me, you might believe me. But if I told you I saw a ghost and showed you a picture of it, then you would believe me. If I showed you a picture that you could not debunk that was an actual spirit entity, you would have no choice but to believe me when I told you I saw a ghost. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the way I look at the orb thing. You can tell me this happened and this happened and this happened, and I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying as for me, I haven't had
You haven't had that experience yet.
Yes, to where I can definitely say in my mind without a doubt, yes, this is what it is. And I have to be skeptical like that. I have to.
Oh, you have to.
And these people that get mad at me when I say stuff like this, it's not that I'm denying them what they know in their head. It's just not in my head.
Right.
I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying I need more
proof
to substantiate for myself.
Exactly.
And I'll argue with anybody.
Yep. And I argue with people all the time, but and I love to argue back and forth as long as it's professional and it's good to argue or have a discussion, something like that, because it brings out other ideas and it brings out new philosophies a lot of times.
It's good to talk to people that, like you have your proof, you substantiated your claim, and me on the other hand, I'm still skeptical because I haven't substantiated a claim to prove that. So you have two opinions, but still we're not saying either of us are wrong. We're just saying that this is how it is.
We agree to disagree.
Exactly. And it takes that, in the paranormal field, it takes both sides. You got to have a skeptical side, and you got to have a side that says, hey, this is possible. All things are possible.
Yep. Until proven otherwise.
See, and I may post something sometime, and you might see it and say, well, I haven't never seen that or had that happen. I don't know if I want to believe that or not. Well, that's your skeptical side, and I respect that.
Yeah, but you know what, though? Honestly, I would never say that. But what I would do is I would ask you how that happened, and I would try to duplicate your research.
Yeah, there you go.
To see
That's
if I
what
can
I'm
get
talking
it done.
about. Get it? Yeah. That's the thing. Most people won't. They'll just start arguing with you.
Because I'm always looking for new other ideas. I don't have the end to end it all. I'm not the like I said earlier, I'm not the all-knowing expert because there is no expert in this field, but I am a very well-educated and versed professional in this field. And I feel there's not too much I haven't seen or haven't heard. And so, like I said, I'm always up for new ideas, new philosophies. And
exactly. You got to be open to, to all kinds of aspects.
Exactly.
But at the same time, you can't just automatically jump in there and say, yeah, that's it, because you got to tear that down and tear it apart and rip it to shreds. And then if you got something, you got something.
Exactly.
That's what I find about a lot of people, and I'm saying people, most of the ones that you have coming in nowadays, everything is paranormal.
Yeah. Well, you know what it is, Roger, especially on social media, it's the ego. Too many people are letting their ego get in the way. And you can't have if you're going to be a true paranormal researcher, you cannot have an ego, because of even if it's not a paranormal, any type of scientific researcher has to have an open mind. They gotta check their ego at the door when they go in to do research.
It has to have an open mind, and it has to have a positive and a skeptical side.
Exactly.
In order for you to get to the bottom of it, to get to the truth, you got to have both sides acting together. And we are live on WCJV Digital Broadcasting out of Youngstown, New York. This is Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio with your host, Roger Belt, and a very, very interesting guest tonight, Mr. Chad Stambaugh. We've had a good time. I've been having a good time. I love talking to people that know what they're talking about and aren't afraid to put it out there, but at the same time can accept when somebody doesn't wholeheartedly agree with everything they say, because that's what it takes in the paranormal field if you want to get to the truth. I don't know much better way to put that.
Yep. And, a lot of people like to use the word paranormal unity. I don't like that saying, because you're never going to, unfortunately, with the people that's in the field right now, you're never going to have that unity, because unity, by the definition, means everybody agrees with everybody else what's going on, and that's not true.
Well,
what I do believe in is paranormal cooperation.
That's not the way I look at it, but you can change the words around any way you want. Unity to me means being able to work together and understand each other's ideas, and not be ready to spit on somebody that don't agree with the first thing you say.
Exactly. Pretty much the same thing I'm saying, because they left the ego get in the way. But I do believe in paranormal cooperation, because I cooperate with a lot of individuals and teams throughout not only the United States, but internationally. And, you can't do that with everybody, but there is a lot of people out there that are like me and like you, that are open-minded to, like we were just saying, other points of views of how the paranormal should be done.
Well,
when you're working, to me, is what it's all about.
When you're working with other people, okay, if you and I were investigating a place, you have your ways of doing things, and I'm sure I have mine, and they're probably not exactly identical, but you may come up with something that I did not think about, or an idea that I didn't think about that might work better than what I'm doing, or vice versa. And working together and putting your ideas together, you come off with a more well-rounded investigation, is what I'm thinking.
Definitely. I agree with that. Totally agree with that. But when you're doing with investigations, one of the things you got to do is you got to work with, you got to train your investigators or your team. Your team has to work as one. Everybody should know what their job is and how to do it. It's almost like being in the military. I'm retired military master sergeant from the Marine Corps, and everybody has to know what the other person is doing. And so that's how you work together, and I guess if you want to call it unity. But there's so many people out there that don't want to do it that way.
Well, you at the same time that you're saying that everybody has to work together as one, you can't shut down each person's individuality. Because if you say, well, we've all got to work together as one, that means y'all got to do things the way I say to do it. They may come up with an idea, and people are smart critters.
Yeah. But with that,
one of them team members may come up with something you didn't think about. You can't shut them down. You just have to.
You can't shut them down, but in my opinion, there are what I would say, how do I want to put it? Basic procedures to do an investigation.
Yeah.
And a lot of people
understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't do it that way. They're healthy skelter. They're not using equipment properly. They're all over the place,
bouncing around everywhere. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And that is so frustrating. When you're trying to do something, you can't do something if you've got your people running around all over the place like they've got their head stuck somewhere.
Yep. And that's another thing that drives me crazy at these Paracons, because a lot of Paracons will have an evening, at least one investigation of wherever the site that they're doing the Paracon at. And I have to really watch myself, because I sit back sometimes and I don't do a lot of investigating at these things. If I have a new piece of equipment or something like that, I'll use that as a time to test out the equipment.
Right.
But I have to watch myself, because sometimes I watch people and what they're doing with the equipment, and I just want to bust out laughing because I'm
or run over there and yank it out of their hand and go, "No, do it like this."
Yeah. But it's funny, though, because I do that because earlier in the day and I've seen these people before, because when you're at a Paracon, everybody comes by your table and you're talking to this person, especially when I was doing my very first book that somebody had put up on the chat room here, my paranormal investigations. And I'm talking to this person and I'm asking them, how they learned how to do paranormal investigation. And they're like, well, I've been a watcher of so-and-so's show for 10 years, so I know how to investigate. And then later that night, I watched them doing their investigation, and they're doing crazy-ass shit. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you know what you're doing, and I just have to laugh.
And then you know which show they were watching.
Oh, yeah, they told me exactly which show they were watching.
Ghost Adventures?
Yeah, no, actually, it was Ghost Hunters. Actually, this particular person was Ghost Hunters.
Well, Zach done it, so it must be right, If this is a portal to hell, why don't you come up here and get me? Now, what kind of retarded statement is that?
That's just inviting things that you don't know.
Exactly. And he's lucky he's still around to do this show. Because there is stuff that will come up and get you.
Well, a lot of people don't realize the real tall guy on that show, Aaron.
Yeah.
He had an attachment, and it actually was a part of causing him and his ex-wife to split. And a lot of people in the background don't realize this. They split because he had some kind of, I'm not saying a demonic, but he had some kind of bad attachment from one of the cases that he did, and it stayed at his house, and it just drove his wife out crazy, and she ended up divorcing him. And a lot of people don't realize this because everybody thinks that, it's all funny and games. In real life,
and they make it look like that, Oh, well, we're going to be locked down in this place for 24 hours, and we're not going to get out of here until 6 a.m., and whatever's going to happen is going to happen. It's entertainment purposes only. That's it.
Yep.
But you see him doing stuff that puts himself in harm's way. Does he really value his life that little for a rating? Really? I mean, come on.
I guess not.
Because that's the way I see it. You put your life in danger for a rating on a TV show.
Yep. I mean,
My
I've
life
walked
is
out of
worth a lot more
than that. Yep. I've walked out of cases where even my clients were doing something they shouldn't be doing during an investigation, and I had my team just pack up and tell them, I said, sorry, at this point in time we can't investigate, and they'll look at me why, and I'll give them the reasons because of what they're doing. I'm going to give you an example. We went to do a case, and the woman left. We were like the first hour into the case, and the woman left for a couple minutes. Came back. When she came back into the room where we were doing an EVP session, she had a glass of wine in her hand. I just looked at her and I'm like, "What are you doing? You can't be drinking wine or any type of alcohol during a paranormal investigation. You're getting rid of you're dropping your inhibitions and you're dropping your normal self defenses that you have. That if you have anything there, to protect yourself against an attachment."
Exactly. That, and also it puts any
other of my members in danger.
Well, that, and I'm also thinking that it makes your investigation look like a joke.
Well, it does. It does. And I just packed up, and she asked me why I was packing up. I said, we don't drink alcohol. We don't do anything that's going to lower our defenses during an investigation, even the clients. And she just looked at us. She never invited us back, but that's okay because
exactly.
I'm not going to put any of my team at risk because she's not taking it seriously.
Mind if I have a case of beer or two while y'all are investigating,
Right, because at that point I'm figuring, hell, if she's not taking it seriously, why should we take it seriously?
Right. I mean, if she was that serious about it, would she be like, "Oh, I'm just going to come in here and relax and have me a glass of wine, and I may smoke me a doobie or two. Is that all right with y'all?" Really?
Even when we do our lectures and like we just did our third annual lecture at a museum out here in a town called Hanford, California. When we do our lectures and then we have an investigation of the museum itself later on that evening, it's a sober event. There's no alcohol served there, and nobody that shows up with alcohol in their breath is allowed into the event. Because I will not put anybody at danger.
And that is what happens in so many cases. I mean, you either will have, and I keep harping on new people because new people, a lot of them these days don't. This is just my opinion, okay? Whoever in the chat room can comment on this, or you, Mr. Stambaugh, you can comment however you want to. But I think that anybody that wants to get into the paranormal field should do so with someone with experience for a while before they go off on their own and cause harm or do something really ignorant.
Definitely.
I mean, that's how them people burnt that mansion down.
Yeah. Yeah, they were all inebriated.
And they didn't have a clue of what they were doing. It's just, go out and I'm sure you can find a team or somebody that's willing to take you along for some training. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Before you get out there and think you know everything because you watch Ghost Hunters or Ghost Adventures, a few times, get some hands-on experience with people that actually have been doing this for a while and know what they're doing.
Yep. Exactly.
And that's one of the other things besides the TV shows that I like to harp on because it happens too many times. And you read about somebody getting hurt or injured or killed or getting somebody else hurt or killed or or destroying property or whatever because they don't know what they're doing.
Exactly. Well, Roger, I see, you only got like maybe 15 minutes left of your show, and I actually really would like to talk about my latest book that I just came out with, Beyond the Veil.
Sure.
Because the reason I bring that up, because William and Frank Lee have just kind of touched on some subjects in my book, religion and religious in nature. And the reason I wrote the Beyond the Veil is because so many of us in the paranormal field were attacked by, I'll just say it right out, Bible thumpers, or people that like to use the Bible and pick and choose their areas and saying that, ghosts or spirits do not exist. And the problem with that is they're being told by their preachers, whatever you want to call them, I'm not going to say total, but they're being told half fallacies because it's not true. There are actually things in there in the Bible that talks about human spirits. And one of the ones that I like to use in one of my chapters in the book is when God is actually walking across water to come out to the boat that his disciples are on at this particular time. And they come right out and they say that they're scared because, look, it's a ghost coming to visit us across the water. And when Jesus gets there, he tells them, do not fear. It is me. Okay, well, if there was no such thing as human ghosts, according to that verse, Jesus should have promptly, right on that spot, rebuked what they were saying and told them that there was no such thing as a human ghost. But he did not do that. He turned around and said, don't worry about it. It's me, Jesus. And so there's other instances in there also that they talk about human ghosts. So the people that pick and choose their Bible sayings to prove they're not really reading the Bible. They're just reciting what they've been told. And if you actually take the book of the Bible apart, there's so many different things in there that
there's also books that were left out of the Bible, too.
Well, yeah, there's only 4 books in it out of a whole 100 books that were supposed to be in the Bible.
And also there's UFOs in the Bible.
Yeah. I mean, there's parts in there where they talk about Jesus Christ being a regular human being. Up until another example of fallacies of the Bible, up until 1966, the King James Version had the prostitute Mary and Mary Magdalene as the same person. They were not the same person. And one of the books that was taken out of the Bible was actually written by Mary, and where Jesus and her were actually married and have children. And that was taken out by Emperor Constantine at the very first.
Now, I thought it was Mary Magdalene that he was supposed to have married and had children with.
Yeah, Mary Magdalene he had married and had children with, but not Mary the prostitute. 2 different people.
Right.
Yeah. But like I said, Emperor Constantine in 325 or 324 AD took that out because it did not make Jesus look like a supernatural entity.
Yes.
So, that's one of the reasons why I wrote that book, is to kind of get out the actual real information.
While I'm thinking about it, if you have links to where your books are sold or whatever, if you want to throw them up in the chat room there.
Yeah, I've already thrown them up in there.
Oh, okay. I was fixing to say, go ahead and do that. And but yeah, I agree. I know what you're saying. It's just like I said. If they had all the books in there,
it would
that were left out, people would be scared half to death. You might have 10 Christians left out of however many million there are. Because it would probably tell you stuff you wouldn't want to listen to.
Well, it does. A lot of the books in there were written by women, and back then, women weren't allowed to have a voice. And that's another thing in my book that I wrote, how men in particular treated women as a second class citizen, how Caucasian white man treated the American Indian and other indigenous species when they came to the United States or wherever when they went, how they mistreated them. A whole bunch of different things like that is what this book covers. It kind of that's why it's called Beyond the Veil. It's breaking down the taboo stuff that people don't want to talk about, but it needs to be talked about because people need to be enlightened. They need to be able to start thinking for themselves. Too many people are living their lives or living their ideologies by people that are giving them half-truths, and people need to wake up and start thinking for themselves.
I'm sorry, I was having a text argument with Derek about the existing
I know, I've seen
orbs. If you're going to put me on the spot like that, either they do or they don't. I'm going to say they don't. So,
yeah.
No offense meant, Derek. You know what I'm saying. But there's so much, and I mean, when it gets into the paranormal can go into a lot of areas.
Oh yes. Because the paranormal is just a word, an umbrella that covers anything unexplained.
A lot of people think Bigfoot is paranormal.
Well, it's under the cryptozoology, but cryptozoology is under that paranormal umbrella.
Yeah, because he's hard to find, and nobody's got any definite proof, and some say they do, and others say it's not, and blah blah blah. Aliens, UFOs, all that can fall under that.
Well, it's really interesting you brought up Bigfoot because I was just reading an article. I can't remember who it was by, and it was written about a year ago. But his philosophy is the reason we can't never find Bigfoot is because Bigfoot is actually an alien species that is not here all the time. It's an interesting theory. Whether it's valid or not, I don't know, but it's an interesting theory.
Well, what is your and we're getting close to the end time here, but I want to get your opinion on extraterrestrials, UFOs. Now that I've actually seen one, so I can say, yeah, I believe UFOs exist.
I believe they exist. I've never seen one per se, but I got to look at it again like this. My ego would get in the way if I was to say that the human race was the only intelligent species in all of this massive space. You know what I mean? That's taken a lot of ego and a lot of high arc on ourselves as a human species to saying that we're the only intelligent species out of all the expanse of space. That's incredibly stupid. Any intelligent person will tell you we cannot be the only intelligent species out there. So under that philosophy alone, there has to be other types of species out there.
Well, Derek is a very knowledgeable person on all the ET and the UFO thing, and he can tell you stuff make your skin crawl. But
like I said, I totally believe in aliens. I've never had an encounter, but I definitely believe in them.
I actually saw 5 orange glowing spears one day that were just hovering like up above this old country store I used to go to. And a woman comes out. I drive up. I get out of my car. She's going out to her car. We both look up and see this. And about the time we look up, it shoots off and it's gone in 2 seconds. Now, we have nothing, and especially at that time, because that was probably, I want to say, around 83. I don't think we had anything at that time that could move that fast. I mean, if we did, we didn't know about it. Put it that way.
Right. I mean, and a lot of things, a lot of the footage that I've seen, you know, these objects are moving in ways that we don't have any aeronautical technology that can move those different ways. Not even a helicopter can move in some of the ways that I've seen footage on.
Deborah posted a picture. You saw the
Yeah, I'm trying to blow it up and look at it.
The quote unquote orb here, and I say that because somebody else saw it and says it's so does not convince me, because all I'm looking at is a photograph.
Yeah, I'm trying to blow it up.
You know, and that's why I don't like to get into this stuff with people, because you know, it's too easy for somebody to get upset because you don't take their word. And in some cases, I can't just take somebody's word. You see this picture? What is this? You know, well, pictures can be photoshopped. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, there's different systems out there now that you can put in EXIF data and stuff like that. And you can put it in, and that the technology will tell you whether it's been photoshopped or not. A lot of people don't realize this. It's really easy. Within 5 minutes, you send me a picture. Within 5 minutes, I can tell you if it's been photoshopped or not.
Well, and don't get me wrong, I would love to believe that orbs are spirits. I really would. But I got to have that grain of proof there, something to convince me.
Yeah, you got to have that personal experience yourself.
You know, yeah. And when
unlike myself.
And when I do, I'll jump right up there with Deborah and everybody. Oh, yeah, I saw an orb over here, and it did this. And, you know, because then I will know for a fact in my own head.
Right. You know, I was the same way. When I first got into the paranormal field, I didn't get into it because I believed in it. I got into it because my wife was interested in it. And I was, you know, just wanted to get in something in common with her that we could do together. Up until an incident where my grandson and me were the only ones in the house, and the house we live in is my wife's inheritance house from her grandmother. Her grandmother lived and died in this house we live in. And up until the time that me and my grandson were the only ones in the house, and I was feeding him, and he was looking over my shoulder, and I looked back and I said, "Grandma, if that's you there, can you do something to, you know, make me believe that you're here?" And she turned this chair that is an old-fashioned chair that is so heavy that it ain't moving unless you are sitting in it and you move it with your legs. And that sucker moved 45-degree angle toward me. And I'm like, okay, if that's you really, Grandma, move it back to the same original position. And when it moved back to the original position, that was my personal experience right there, that the paranormal was real. But up until that point, I didn't believe in the paranormal. But like you said, until you have that personal experience of an orb, energy orb, then you're not going to believe it until it actually happens to you.
Well, we're going to have to get ready to shut this thing down. It's been really nice having you on, and very interesting, very, very interesting show indeed. Maybe one of these days we can do this again.
Oh, I'd love to.
For Deborah on there, your picture's awesome, but to me it's still moisture. I'm sorry. Like I said, I've got to have something slap me in the face and say, "Hey, Raj, I'm it," you know?
Yeah, that picture, the last picture she put in there, those are moisture. Those are moisture pictures.
That's kind of what I was thinking too. And, you know, if you want to believe in this stuff, far be it from me to hold you back. But don't ask me for my opinion unless you want it, because I'm going to tell you what I think. And I don't want to argue with anybody, and especially my friends or nothing like that. I'm just saying that I will tell you what I think. You can tell me what you think, and we can agree to disagree and let it go.
There you go. Agree to disagree. You got to be professional in this field. You can't take anything personally.
Nice to have everybody in the chat room. Thanks for coming. I don't know what happened to Madita. She just disappeared. But anyway, we will see y'all next week. I have, let me think here for a second, because I just pulled her up today. She talks about NDEs and stuff like that. And I'm drawing a blank because I just located her today, and so her name's not fresh in my head. I know it's something Lynn K. Russell. Yeah. Okay. Lynn K. Russell, we're going to be talking about NDEs and stuff like that. And I also want to send a shout out to Betty Bumble, wherever you are. With that, I'm going to say good night. Thanks again, Chad, for coming.
Thanks a lot.
We'll see everybody.
Thank you for tuning in to Half Past Dead Paranormal with your host, Roger Belt. We hope you've enjoyed the show, and tune in again next week as we look for more answers to the unexplained, unknown, and unseen. Stay safe and happy hauntings.